Hi, this is Kurt Wallace with LibertyPulse.com. We have Jesse Benton with us today. We're talking about the issue around Colorado and the commercial ad that was created by Campaign for Liberty that included Ken Buck, who is a candidate running for U.S. Senate in Colorado. And it's good to have you with us today, Jesse.
Oh, thanks, Kurt. It's really great to be with you.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. We wanted to air out all of the issues surrounding this, and hopefully what we'll do is in this open forum, we're going to ask some pointed questions to you with the idea that we'll be able to understand clearly what has gone on, the events that have occurred, and Campaign for Liberty's position on the candidate and moving forward. As well, I also want to preface this interview by saying that I am a supporter of Campaign for Liberty. I think what you guys are doing is amazing in terms of where we are today versus where we were a year ago in the discussion and the language that people used. We just had 30 senators vote to remove Bernanke from his position. It was a transpartisan vote. We have H.R. 1207, which you guys have been pushing this legislation, and if it wasn't for aligning yourselves with socialists, Democrats, neocons, this legislation would not be moving forward. So I want to commend you for the work that you guys have been doing, and looking forward to seeing the success in the future. That being said, let's go ahead and get into this. Give us a background on what has happened in Colorado regarding the commercial with Ken Buck.
Well, let's take even a step further back from that. Campaign for Liberty is working on a national candidate survey program. We have produced a survey with 20 questions, everything from warrantless wiretapping to competing currencies to abolishing the IRS to undeclared war. And the purpose of the survey is to get candidates on the record on their positions on these issues. We're looking for candidates that will go ahead and pledge that they'll oppose undeclared war, they'll support competing currencies, they'll go on the record saying they support abolition of the IRS, so on and so forth. Then when they get into office, if they violate these pledges and promises that they've made to their constituents, we can hold them accountable, we can beat them up, all kinds of stuff. It also helps us identify some of the people that are going to be better candidates. A strong score on the survey indicates that you tend to be a better candidate. Of course, so many candidates get into office and they go ahead and then violate what they ran on, whether it be George Bush, Barack Obama. So many candidates just go ahead and do that. But, it's very important to try to get them on the record. Colorado happens to be one of the primary states with the earliest filing deadline. We can't run a candidate survey program in a state until the filing deadline for their primary because you can't identify all the candidates. But Colorado they have a very early filing deadline. So once all the candidates were official, we sent out candidate surveys. And some of the people in Colorado that had never really worked with us or given us any money, they saw the survey, they really liked it, and they took it to Ken Buck. And Ken Buck happened to fill it out very, very well. He scored 95%. He answered all of our issues correctly. He said he opposed undeclared war. He said he supported transparency at the Federal Reserve. All the warrantless wiretapping questions are very good. Right to life issues, very good. Very strong defender of the Second Amendment. The only issue that he was not 100% on was abolishing the IRS, to which he wrote a pretty lengthy and thoughtful explanation of why he couldn't answer 100% yes. He was concerned about what abolishing the IRS would mean as far as what it's replaced with. And, of course, my answer, Dr. Paul's answer, probably your answer is we don't want to replace it with anything. But he was concerned that just openly promising to abolish it might lead to something worse. He doesn't like the fair tax, so on and so forth. So these Colorado activists, again, who had never really given Campaign for Liberty money before, a small number of them came together and they raised a big chunk of money and they gave it to us and said, we would like you guys to run an aggressive publication of your candidate survey, mail, TV, radio, about the fact that Ken Buck scored very well in your survey. And then, of course, our purpose is to get every single candidate to fill out this survey. It's good that Ken Buck filled out this survey and scored well. We want every single other candidate, whether it be Jane Norton, the Bush-backed, the Bushy-type conservative in this race, or non-conservative, neoconservative. We want the Democrats to fill it out, too. We want all the candidates, the Libertarians, the Constitution Party candidates. We want to put pressure on all of them to fill it out so they let their constituents know exactly where they stand on all 20 of these critical liberty issues. I'm going to let you know that Campaign for Liberty made a mistake. We don't do everything perfect, and we made two mistakes. One is that we didn't properly communicate to our members about the survey program. We didn't let you all know, all the supporters and members out there, that we were doing this and that it was coming down the pipe. So a lot of people weren't ready for it when they heard about it. They just heard a quick snippet about it on a blog that really didn't say exactly what we were doing. And then two, the commercial that we put up wasn't proper. If we're going to run a commercial like this again in the future, instead of saying Ken Buck is a great Liberty candidate, Ken Buck, that really sounded like an endorsement. Campaign for Liberty does not endorse candidates, but this commercial that we ran was poor. The message really sounded like we were endorsing Ken Buck above all other candidates in the race. What the commercial should have said was, Ken Buck filled out his Campaign for Liberty survey. He got a 95. That's very good, and he's gone on the record and promised some good things to his constituents. Please, take a look at Ken Buck and thank him for taking the survey. Also, pressure all of your other candidates for Senate to fill out the Campaign for Liberty candidate survey and get it back to Campaign for Liberty so they can let their constituents or potential constituents know where they stand on all these crucial issues. That's what the commercial should have said. It didn't say that, and quite frankly, we acknowledge it. We messed up. We've taken down the commercial, and we're not going to run that commercial again. It just wasn't right. Campaign for Liberty doesn't do everything right. We're still a young organization, and we're learning and growing. I think the things that we do right vastly outweigh the things that we've done wrong. But when we do things wrong, we take it very seriously. We move to correct it. We thank people for their constructive criticism, and we're going to do better. Now, as far as Ken Buck goes, I will say this. A lot of our people in Colorado are very, very interested in Ken Buck, and a lot of them are outright supporting him. They say that, in the past year, Ken Buck has done a complete 180 on the Federal Reserve, from trumpeting this, the importance of independence at the Fed, meaning secrecy at the Fed, to now being 100% behind full transparency at the Fed. He's also really come along on foreign policy. Yeah, he isn't where we'd like him to be on Afghanistan, but he is regretful of the Iraq War. He's on the record as saying that he will never vote to go to war unless there's a declaration of war, and he's very critical of nation building and bloated empire government expenditures. So a guy like this is coming around. He also does have some real legitimate passions about smaller government, limited government. Is he a perfect candidate? No. Can everybody and Campaign for Liberty get behind him? No. But Campaign for Liberty itself is about educating people, about getting candidates on the record, and about organizing and strategy. It's not about supporting specific candidates. So we'll leave it up to the people in Colorado whether or not they'll support Ken Buck. A lot of them, quite frankly, are. What I find hurtful is that people want to go ahead and go on the internet without full facts and say that we're giving $350,000 to a horrible neocon. We did not give money to anybody. We also did not take any money out of the general fund at Campaign for Liberty for this project. This was money that a handful of special Colorado donors gave us specifically for this project. The money was not available for any other project. It was here for this one-time, narrowly earmarked expenditure. Second of all, we're not supporting any candidate here. I just admitted that, the ad, the messaging in the commercial can lead people to think that we are, and that's why we pulled the commercial, and, we apologize for that. That was a mistake. However, the purpose of this whole ad is to, this whole campaign is to get candidates on the record so we can let people know where they stand. And I think that's an incredibly positive thing. We've made a few mistakes, but overall, I think a candidate survey program is very, very important, very, very productive, and we plan to do it in all 50 states. We'll do it very, very aggressively in any state that we can get the proper funding for. Now, we do raise money, and in some targeted important states, we're gonna use general revenue for it. We also encourage Campaign for Liberty members in their specific states to raise money or find donors that want to pay for a more aggressive, robust program in their own state. That's part of the reason why we're setting up autonomous, independent Campaign for Liberty chapters all across the country, is so that they can help identify, those special kind of donors, and then work with the national group to do these kind of programs. We want to get out there. We want to pressure and get every single candidate on the record, letting us know where they stand on these critical liberty issues. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but that's the whole purpose of this program. And finally, I'd just like to say, the people that like this program or have liked this program the most have been our people in Colorado, and I think they seem to know best. And quite frankly, this program has worked. Within 2 or 3 days of the program being announced and the ad starting to run, 7 candidates for major office have contacted our local coordinators out there and have been asking for surveys. They've been frantic to get this survey so they can make this pressure stop. They want to get on the record too. And if they get on the record and they're bad, we'll know it. We can oppose them. They get on the record and they're good, and we can let people know that they've made some good promises, and people can figure out for themselves whether they want to support them. And then even more importantly, if they get into office, we can hold their feet to the fire and make them follow through on their promises or beat them up if they don't. So that's it in a nutshell right there. And, I think a lot of the problems that we've had on the internet with people being upset over the past few days are driven by the fact that Campaign for Liberty didn't communicate well enough with its members to let them know this. I think when, I've taken 50, 60, 70 phone calls with supporters that were upset and all they'd read on the internet was Campaign for Liberty gives $350,000 to a neocon. Well, after they hear exactly what I just told you, just about every one of those phone calls I've had has ended up with them parting ways with me on the phone, hanging up the phone, and being very satisfied and very happy and ready to go ahead out and work hard again for liberty. So that's it in a nutshell right there, and I'm really glad that I could tell it to you.
Well, I appreciate you sharing this information. And just so that folks know who are listening, we have not had this discussion. This is the first time I'm actually hearing this information. And I'm glad that I didn't practice contempt prior to investigation on this issue. And that's one of the principles that Herbert Spencer espoused is there's a bar against all information, proof against all argument, which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. And that principle is contempt prior to investigation. And as our movement knows very well, we're a small and growing movement, but we are in our infancy, and we're not even walking yet. We're crawling, and we have a lot to do in terms of growing as a movement, and rightfully so. Campaign for Liberty has its growing pains as well, and I appreciate you sharing the shortcomings of this particular situation. But it should not overshadow the value of all the efforts that have been so powerful with the legislation, H.R. 1207. Again, that is probably the biggest piece of legislation for freedom that's happened since 1913. And
let me say this again too, Kurt. When politicians see that Campaign for Liberty drop this kind of money and this kind of expenditure into a state to pressure them to fill out the survey and go on record with us, that's pretty powerful, and that's the kind of thing that we need. We need to flex our muscle a little bit, let them know that we've got power, we've got grassroots support, we've got money, and candidates are gonna have to deal with us. They're gonna have to go on the record and let us know where they stand on the issues that are important to us.
This is a question from Brian at Ron Paul Forums, and he asks, are financials available to the public to show that the money was donated to C4L with the intent of having it used for a specific cause?
No, Brian, they are not. 501c4 donor records are 100% privacy protected, and that's a very positive thing. Everybody that donates to Campaign for Liberty, your donor information is 100% private. Well, I mean, I guess as 100% private as you can get in this world. I mean, the FBI makes people give over, confidential records all the time without constitutional protection. But technically, your donor records are completely confidential, and I think that's a very important thing. I don't want my name or my donor information given out for what money I give to certain groups. Some of the groups I give to are controversial, and I don't want to be put on lists or anything for supporting them. And then second of all, I don't want my information being used as for fundraising information for other groups calling me up and bombarding me for money. So no, Brian, they are not available. Campaign for Liberty's Form 990, which is the IRS form that we fill out every year. Our 2009 990 is available either at your request or on the IRS's website. Happy to help anybody get a copy of that they want to look at to see our financials. But no, to be able to see how this money was specifically earmarked is not available. But that's for a good purpose. That's to protect the privacy of the donors that give to Campaign for Liberty and other such organizations.
Okay, and there is a request on dailypaul.com by Michael Moresco that was directed in his message to John Tate, the president of Campaign for Liberty, calling for a proper board of officers elected by grassroots. Are you familiar with this, and what do you think of the idea?
I'm not familiar with a specific post. Mike Moresco is my friend. He's a good guy. I respect his activism. Mike, that's to respond directly to Mike or anybody that is interested in this. That's exactly why we're setting up independent autonomous state chapters around the country, so that each state can, under some certain guidelines and expertise, to keep everything legal, so that states can have input in what they do and elect their own state officers. As far as Campaign for Liberty National goes, we are what we are. We try to be the most bottom-up, most transparent organization of its type out there. No, Campaign for Liberty National is not going to be electing our board of directors through the grassroots, but we hope that we have addressed that problem to the satisfaction of many out there by setting up these autonomous independent state chapters across the country.
What, if anything, has Ron Paul said about this issue?
He's been upset about it. The thing he's been most upset about has been the viciousness of people on the internet. When he was concerned, and he was concerned about the mistake that we made with airing that commercial, but he is only our honorary chairman, so he stays out of the day-to-day decision making and management. But he is implored us that we fix the mistake, that we set up some important checks and balances to make sure a mistake like this doesn't happen again. But then his biggest concern has been the viciousness of the personal attacks. He just doesn't understand it. John Tate is a friend of his. John Tate's a real decent person. And when I'm his grandson-in-law, and when he sees our names drugged through the mud and people just being over the top vicious, people threatening to to call the Federal Elections Commission on us and push investigations and this and that, he kind of scratches his head and just wonders, what these people are thinking. It's personally wounding to him, and really what he just wants is everybody to calm down, take a deep breath, listen to the facts, and let's get through this and get back to working on things that are really important. I mean, last week, while this stuff was all bubbling and raging and people are ranting and raving on the internet and trying to get people to call Campaign for Liberty, one of the most important votes in the past 10 years in the United States Senate was going on, and that was a cloture vote on the Bernanke hold. And every single bit of energy that we could have used to try to uphold that filibuster We needed that. We didn't need 5% or 7% of that energy being devoted on attacking each other, and that was disappointing to me. I hope we can learn from this and avoid beating ourselves up. We've got a big enough fight, without attacking each other and without self-inflicted wounds.
Now, there are people that have declared that they're going to quit Campaign for Liberty. What is your thought on that?
Well, I think that's a shame, and we'll miss them. I will tell you this. We have over 250,000 members, and in the past week, we've gotten 43 people asking to have their information deleted from our records and rescinding their membership. So that's about 0.001%. We want every single individual, every single willing individual, in our group and in the movement. But if people just can't accept what Campaign for Liberty is doing, and they just don't like the direction of Campaign for Liberty, if it's not for them, that's okay too. There is plenty of room out there in the Liberty movement for other individuals and other groups taking things from a different angle. I mean, Campaign for Liberty is not the be-all, end-all, and we're not trying to be everything to everybody. We think we're very, very effective. We think we've got a tremendous and growing influence, and we are working really hard to take our liberty back. But if some individuals don't like our approach, we're libertarians too, and they can go ahead and unleash their creativity and potential through another outlet.
Well, Jesse, we really appreciate you spending some time addressing the issue surrounding the Colorado advertisement. Are you guys going to create another commercial, a new commercial for this project?
We are actually not sure about that. We're probably just going to go ahead and kill it for now. And I think that's a little bit of a shame, but we've been working overtime to try to fix the problems that we were partially responsible for. We do intend to try to run this survey program in all 50 states. And when appropriate or when the money is available, we want to do similar things, obviously with a much better put together commercial that is much more clear that this is about the survey and not about endorsing a candidate. But there are, Campaign for Liberty can, and we would very much like to, focus the efforts towards states where there are some really good liberty candidates running and could use a little bit of a boost by us highlighting what a good record and good positions they're taking. So we hope to be very robust in this program, and we are going to stay the course. And we hope that some people are just not going to be able to agree with what we're doing, and we encourage them to find what's best for them in the liberty movement. Hope that our honest and earnest explanation to the people that didn't have enough information that they'll very quickly put this behind us and move on and start working, because we've all got a lot of work to do, and we would like to make this survey program really work in some other states.
Well, thank you again for coming on and talking with us about this issue. One more question, and I have to ask this: is Ron Paul going to run for president in 2012?
If the answer had to be made today, it would be no. But he is considering it very strongly, and there is a decent likelihood that he will. A lot of it depends on things going on in his personal life, and also what's going on in the country. So everybody out there that wants him to run, and I am one of them, I encourage them to politely but energetically let him know that you would really like to see it happen, because I think between the organization that Campaign for Liberty's put together, the other liberty groups out there, and the growing relevance of our message, of our liberty message, I think we could really make tremendous inroads and be a tremendous player in this race. I think it could be twofold. First of all, I think that this time around Ron would actually be a serious player to win. And second of all, I think that it would be a tremendous way to push this message we have.
Jesse, thanks for being with us again.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you for your friendship and your leadership.
This is Kurt Wallace with LibertyPulse.com, your liberty news aggregator.